I was called last night by a friend of mine in America. He said his daughter is currently here and maybe she was going to attend this year. But she went to a Makubal. Now I have a Kabbalah from Rabbi Yaakov Hill, one of my teachers, who was probably the biggest Makubal in the world, that you can't rely on every single Makubal. Some of them are real and some of them are not real, right? Mm-hmm. It could be it's proportional to how much money they take, and that's off the record. But this Makubal said something, and as my Rebbe, Shlomo Rebbe used to say, says, I'm not going to argue with what he says because the principle is definitely correct. This girl is an older girl, and she's having trouble with shidduchim because there's dissent in the home. There's a long-standing machlokas dispute going on between one person in the family and another person in the family, and this is stopping the shidduch from coming. Right?
Wait, just in her family?
In her family, yeah. So look, I'm not going to say that I agree with it because I don't agree with everything Amakul says, but that's what I want to talk about tonight. This concept of sinas chinam, which it's a word which is thrown around a lot, And then I just heard a kshir last week from Reuven Leuchter, Ahavas Chinam. He said something which I've heard many times, is there is no such concept as Ahavas Chinam. Ahavas Chinam is a misnomer. It's not a Jewish concept at all. It has nothing to do with the Jewish religion. Yeah? Because if you understand what sinas chinam is, then you understand why Ahavas Chinam is not really the concept that is going to help us. The Rav Yonasan Eibshe explains in Yaros Tabash, this is the first drasha, the 7th chapter. He says, why is it called sinas chinam? Right? He says a brilliant explanation. He says, because we have a rule in the Gemara. The Gemara says like this, Kivan she'avar v'shana nasik heter. A person does an avera once, oh, that's terrible. A person does an avera twice, oh, it's so bad. A person does it for 3 times, now it becomes a mitzvah, because there's a certain inhibition that stops us from doing transgressions. But once we get used to doing it, then it kind of becomes part of our daily routine. Right? A perfect example is Lashon Hara. This is a great contribution that the Chavetz Chaim made to Klal Yisrael, is that people will tell you, someone says like the worst Lashon Hara you could possibly imagine about whoever it might be. And they say, no, this is a mitzvah to talk about this. I'm doing a great service to society by telling everybody how stupid this person is. Right? And it's not true. There are very clear rules. I've told you this before. The acronym is Starbucks. Right? If you want to keep it on your fingertips, you have to have seen it yourself. You have to think about it. It has to be accurate. You have to reprove the person first. It has to be beneficial. You have to use other ways other than Lashon Hara. You have to cause no more damage in the basin. Keep these 7 conditions or keep silent. Right? Starbucks, it's like easy as having a cup of coffee. Right? So the thing is like this. So it's not, most of the time, it's not a mitzvah to speak Lashon Hara. What happens is that we get so used to it and we get so programmed to keep doing it, we just keep doing it again. This is how Rav Yonasan Eibshe explains sinas chinam. It's become so ingrained in our personality, we don't even realize it's transgression anymore. Chinam means like, it's just like a free market. It's free. It's like, it's nothing anymore. We treat it like nothing. As one of my close friends, Rav Zelik Pliskin once said, if you can't put in the wheelbarrow, it doesn't exist. Somebody just called me last week, a young lady. She said, I had some sort of dispute with my brother, and I felt so upset. I felt like this, so upset. That's sinas chinam, right? As we said, the Vilna Gaon says there's 6 facets of the Yetzer Hara. There's Ra, Mirma, Taiva, Chemda, Going. Ra is that push that like I really, really upset with someone. I really want to get back at them and we feel that's part of our personality. If someone does something to upset me, of course I get upset. Says the Gra, right? And say Chazal, as Rav Hobson Eibshe is saying, that's called sinas chinam. Because that is not justified. It's coming from the outside. We're being pushed to do that. It's not really us. Yeah? As the Gra says on the Pasuk, we learned it previously. He says, Tov erech apayim megibro Moshe Baruch koloked ir. Right? A person who controls his anger is very great, but somebody who controls his Yetzer Hara, is like someone who's a city under siege. Says the Vilna Gaon, sometimes the enemy will use a tactic to dress up like the other side in war, and it'll look like you. What does the Yetzer Hara does? He puts on your jacket, your glasses, your hat, your face, everything, and he comes to you and says, you really have to get upset with this person. This person really offended you. This is terrible. He degraded your honor. This is an affront to everything you stand for. And like he gets really upset, or she, or it, or MX, whatever pronoun you can use, and we get really upset, right? Says the Gra, this is complete fallacy. It's nothing. It's coming from the outside. It's chinam. It's chinam. So this is something we really, really have to be aware of, yeah, and say Chazal that this is why we don't have a Beis Hamikdash today. I told you I was interviewed just a few hours ago by Netflix, and they said, "Why don't we have a temple today?" I said, "How can we have a temple? This Jew is not going to die there because he's there, and this Jew, nobody's going to come. Yeah, we need all Jews unified as one entity, one. I think Maharal says this. The Malbim says it. The Beis Hamikdash is not about the place that you come to when you take the number 3 bus in the morning, 4:20 or 4:30. That's not what it is. That is just a vessel. The Beis Hamikdash is the sum total of all Jewish hearts united as one in conglomeration. And then we have a building in order to express that. But that's really it is. As long as descent, as long as the Sinas Chinam. And this whole thing about Sinas Chinam is just it's a smokescreen, right? Because it's not true when someone does something to you that you're supposed to get upset. I made a photocopy of it, but I forgot to bring it. But let's see this pasuk inside. I believe this is the most important pasuk in Mishlei with the Gra. If I could give the same shir every single week for the next 25 years, I would do it on this pasuk. Right? Rav Gershon Edelstein used to mention this, not the Gra by name, but this concept in almost every single class he gave. He mentioned it. And it's in Perek Yud Aleph Pasuk Yud Tes. And then we're going to see the Gra here from Evan Shleimer. So this is on my version, which may not be the same one. I think it's actually not. It's in Kuf Chaf Hey. Kuf Chaf Hey. You have that? Yud Aleph Yud Tes. Right? Yud Aleph Yud Tes. Kain Stakas L'chaim Umardif Ra Lamoso. Right? Do you have that? Yud Aleph Yud Tes? Mm-hmm. So we're going to skip the beginning of the pasuk. Umardif Ra. Somebody who chases Ra is a kolomar. Shemardif Acher Royim Umasayno Sam Shi'asara. There are individuals who pursue evil and they help them do it. Hulamoso, that's going to cause his death. Says the Gra, Kila Nirdaf, the person who is being chased, Ein Chilik. It doesn't really matter that this guy is trying to do evil to him. Shaharbe Shluchim Lamakom. There are many messengers to God. V'im hu lo yaseh yal di acher. If he doesn't do it, somebody else is going to do it. Right? Which means what? If someone let's take the story of Kamsa Bar Kamsa. Right? We know the Gemara says in Gittin, Daf Nun Vav Nun Zayin, it says because of Kamsa and Bar Kamsa, Jerusalem was destroyed. What happened? They come to the wedding. Right? He had a friend named Kamsa, an enemy named Bar Kamsa. They all accidentally get invited to the wedding, and it gets thrown out. Right? Now, if he had realized this had nothing, he got publicly embarrassed. But if Bar Kamsa had realized it has nothing to do with this, he was going to get publicly embarrassed, if not by this guy, by Huish, it would have been this person. Today he was going to get publicly embarrassed. It had nothing to do with this person per se, right? It was Nigzer and Shemayim, he had to get publicly embarrassed. That's what the Gra is saying here. He says it doesn't make any difference at all for the person who receives the persecution, whatever you want to call it, whatever word you want to use, because if Shimon hadn't did it, Reuben hadn't did it. If Sarah hadn't did it, Leah would have done it. Somebody's going to do it. It's just a question of who's going to carry it out. So says the Gra, there's absolutely no reason to get upset at that person. Yeah? V'im hu lo yasi el di'acher, rakula moso, shul severe. The person who hurt you, he's doing a transgression, but you have no reason to get upset with him at all. Rav Gershon Edelstein, I must have heard this from him 100 times. This was his message to the generation, right? This is why Mashiach hasn't come yet. This is why there's no Beis Hamikdash. This is what the Gemara in Yuma Daf Testament Beis says, that because the transgression wasn't revealed, so the end isn't revealed. This is going back to be honest. Not revealed means we don't understand that it's a transgression. We think if someone hurts me, of course, I'm going to get upset with that person. That's human nature. Mistake. Yeah, that's what the Gra is saying here. It doesn't make any difference that that person did it to you. It was going to happen to you anyway. This is what he's saying. Now, we can take this concept one step deeper, and that's why he photocopied. Now, I had made a copy of this Gra from another edition. He brings a proof from many other places which say this. It's the same idea. But the Gra really goes to the depth about this concept these pages I printed out from you. This is one of the most famous scrolls that exists. Yeah, it's very, very famous. And you have it here on these photocopy sheets, right? The Sefer is called Evan Shlema. It was a compilation of the Gra's writing. And on the side here, we have something from the Gra, which is from its commentary in the Gemara, where he talks about the four animals, the four non-kosher animals, right? That have one sign, but not two signs. There are many non-kosher animals that don't have two signs, but there are four that don't have one sign. And I want to learn it with you inside because it's very, very important, yeah? And it really hits on the reason that we don't have a base of English today and that we're so much difficulty with this idea of getting upset with people. And I think if we really take this to heart ourselves, then it could change the world. I'll just add to one point. This interview today I had with Netflix, the guy kept telling me what everybody else is saying. This person is saying like this, and it was all negative. It was all, why are the religious like this? Why are the secular like this? Why this? I said, my question why are you asking these questions? Just be friends with each other, and 90% of the issues will fall away, He was asking me, why this and why this and why this, all the other things that you heard from other people. I said, don't ask that, right? You don't talk to your brother like that. The famous story that I heard about my Rebbe, Rav Shimshon Pincus, when he first got to Ofakim, he saw a secular boy on a donkey just wearing shorts, no shirt, no socks, no shoes. And someone commented, that's a donkey on a donkey. And Rav Shimshon Pincus said, don't talk about my son like that, right? And this is the correct attitude we're meant to have, right? If everybody, I was at the Kozel yesterday and there was thousands of people streaming in demonstration. I was sitting on the floor recording my shiurim for Turning Time. And I got a good group of like 100 people around me. And I just said why is everybody fighting? Let's just be friends. We're all brothers and sisters. What do we need this for? And everybody said, yeah, maybe you're right. Anyway, but let's see, because the Gra really hits on the depth of this idea. Where is it coming from? Where are these deep feelings of dissatisfaction, of hatred, of anger when someone insults us, when someone slices our cupboard, when someone doesn't do what we're going to do? Okay, so let's see this inside. Okay. We're going to start, I think, from the second page. We're going to start from the second page, I think, because it's pretty long. Okay. So first he starts talking about the four animals that have one sign of kashrus, right? There's two different signs of kashrus. One is that they chew their cud, and one is the split hooves. Says the Gra, chewing cud is a sign of an internal problem, right? Internal issues, right? If you chew your cud, that means you're internally taken care of. And having the non-kosher sign on the outside is external problems. So look at the Gra here on page Lamed Gimel, where it talks about the Gamal. Okay, Gamal are Nevet v'Shafon, that's the camel and the hyrax and the hare, let's call it that. Siman Tarashem Malagera, they all chew their cud. Yeah, they all chew their cud. The Siman Tuma She'ena Mafreses Parza, right? They don't have the split hooves. But the Chazer on the hand, the pig, is the opposite. Mafreses Parsa, it has the outer sign of kashrus, as the Medrash says. Gamal Zumaleches Bakol Nevis V'chule. Okay, now he quotes the Gemara they just quoted to you in Yuma 9b. Rishonim Adifa or Achronim Adifa. Who is worse? Right? The first temple we know, the first base of Mikdash was destroyed because of Gimel Averes Chamuras, Gilrai Shvichas Dam Vodazara. Right? V'amru Rishonim Adifa. They were better, even though those are very serious transgressions. Right? Immorality, killing, idol worship. Adarab Achronim Adifa to Aska B'Torah. The later generations, they were studying Torah very diligently, right? Tenu Ayam Babia, right? So look at the punishment, right? It's obvious that the second set of transgressions was worse because it's been almost 2,000 years, and the first set was only 7 years. So the Gra says in his incredible brilliance like this, Vainin, I'm going to explain to you, Ki Rishonim Shnisgala Avonam Nisgala Ketzam, right? The first ones, they knew, look, we're doing the wrong thing, killing people. It's really bad, killing people. You should avoid it at all costs, right? Idol worship, immorality, definitely stay away from this, especially if someone else is doing it, right? So, achronim, shlonis gal avonam, lonis gal ketzim, hatam, ki rishonim hayamaseim hatoivim tmunim. Their good acts were hidden, ba'avonoseim pluyim, right? Kilibam hayatov. They had a good heart. See, the Gra is saying, chewing your cud is something inside. That's a sign that your heart is fixed up. Now, hopefully, we'll get a chance. If I could say, like maybe the second most important pasuk in Mishlei, when we get to this Tesvav, Tov Lev Mishta Tamid. We'll get to that. Having a clean heart. We spoke a lot about that during Purim and Pesach. But the Gra says the animals that chewed their cud, this represents inner perfection, right? Inner tikkun, right? So that's what he says. Their outer exterior actions were problematic, right? Ki libam hayatov, but their lave was good. And we know the Gra holds that everything comes from the lave. That's a really important principle. V'achronim lehepech. The later generations, their actions were wonderful, but their heart was messed up. Urachmana libo boy, God wants your heart. Kamosh Kasev, Ravusa lami boy b'shnei rov Yehuda. He brings the proof over there, right? And he translates here. Okay. Va'amru rishonim shayabem avodazar gilarayis v'shrichas damim shetali bitchonim b'kadosh baruch Hu. They believed 100% perfectly in Hashem, right? Nimsa ki ma'aseim ra ma'od, even they were doing terrible things. Shekulan b'yag val yaver. These are all transgressions you have to die for. Chamur sheb'chamura. V'libam hayatov ma'od. Shemala abitochan al kulam. Right? They were acting improperly, but their lave was completely in the right place. Yeah? And it was just a matter of correcting their outer actions. It took 70 years and they were finished. Achronim, asku b'Torah. They were learning diligently. Kamil's chasadim. They were doing lots of chesed, gemachim, all over the place. Ma chorba. Why were they destroyed? Why is the base of being destroyed? Mipnei sinas chinam. Right? Because of, we call hatred without recognizing it. That's a sinas chinam. Lamdecha sheskula sinas chinam. Muchusar bitachon. Right? Now listen to this. Why do people hate other people? Says the Gra, shekol hakina v'asina mimenu. All hatred and jealousy comes from a lack of bitachon. Right? We're going to see a little bit later in Tesvav. Because why do I hate somebody? Because he has something that I don't have. Or he did something to me that he shouldn't have done to me. If I really trust God, then nothing happens without a reason. Right? I know exactly, somebody called me up maybe a year ago, and he said, I had two partners in my company. The company was worth $10 million. They stole like $7-8 million from me. Right? And we made a settlement. I got $2 million. Okay. I said, you were not supposed to get 1 cent more than you got. Okay. You had a legal, reconciliation with them. Now your job is to forget it completely. Forget it. Just completely be mochel them. Forget it ever happened. He said, but that's not possible. So why not? And he called me up recently. He says, you know what? I just about forgot it, and that's it. Because if your heart is right, you understand this is exactly what was supposed to happen. Someone who has midas b'tachon, that's what the Gra is saying. He doesn't have kina, he doesn't have sina. The heart, which we brought before from the Gra, the Sefer Yetzirah says, the 3 best friends of a person are the 2 ears and the heart. Because good things go in and they go straight to your heart and you purify your heart, right? If you don't have jealousy and hatred, then you will be in a great place. Yeah? Ulechein harishonim. Huglu b'shlosh malchios, right? There were 3 kingships, right? 3 gulfs. Shesimen Tyra Shalhem mibifnim, right? It was inside. They were pure on the inside. But simen tuat Shalhem mibuchot. So on the outside. Achronim b'golas Edom shenim tzelachazer, right? Rashi says on the Chumash, Edom is like a chazer. He puts out, look, I'm kosher, glad kosher. You go to the Wallbounds and buy these bacon bits, they have an OU on them. Okay, they're kosher, And now OU gave a psak. They said they're not going to give a hechsher to anything that has name pork in it. Because, they're making now pork from stem cells. And it could be al pi aloha, it's not really pork, and it tastes like pork, it looks like pork, it smells like pork. It's a big problem now in general in aloha. But this OU said, we're not giving any pork. But the pig, it says, by the way, Rav Tzadok says that the pig is going to be kosher less level, right? That's something. But right now, he's holding out his paws and saying, look, I'm totally kosher. I have all the outer signs of kosher. But inside, he's totally not kosher, totally messed up. So, achronim begolas Edom, shnim zlechazer, shu behepech, who poshet lafav lahoros simani tyra. He shows us just how pure he is. V'sheva to'evas, v'saveh te'evas liva. He's full of disgusting things in his heart. Chenu begalazu midasan shel erev rav. Right? We know that the converts that Moshe Rabbeinu accepted. They weren't pure converts, and they're causing many, many problems that we have today. V'nas lo shame, especially things that have to do with honor. V'zesh hakasav tova safan siporan shel rishonim simin tuma shalhem mikreisan shel achronim. Right, bahavin. Right. In other words, their fingernails, which are not kosher, are better than the innards of the later generation, which is the siman tuma that exists in. This gra is like so important, right? If we feel, he's saying like this, if we feel jealous, hatred, any bad feelings against another Jew, it's because we are not fixed up inside. We don't have bitachon. We don't have the right relationship with Hashem. If we did, it would be totally different. Yeah. Now, let's see inside here in the gra, right? Tesvav, where he really explains this much more. In my edition, this is page Kuf Samiches. Now, it's very interesting because the Ramah, it's the last. It's in Kuf Samiches. It's 15:15. Tesvav. Right. It's a very interesting act. It's a very interesting way to remember it because the Ramah brings this pasuk. It's the last halacha in Shulchan Aruch or Chaim. I have Kuf Samiches in mine. Maybe it's different. Kuf Peites. Okay, this is an older edition, as you can see. So the Ramah brings this as a proof, as a smach for Purim Katan, right? Which we spoke about this before. The essence of Purim Katan comes from this idea. The pasuk says like this: Kol yemei ani royim him. The days of a poor person are bad. We'll see it. It's not talking about your bank account, right? V'tov leiv mishte tamid. Somebody who has a good heart, he is in a 24/7 party. So says the Gemara now like this: Kol yemei ani royim him. Kamo shamer Chazal ezu asher hasameach bechelko. It doesn't mean how much money you have, right? We once asked Rav Israel Orbach. He was sandik a lot of times, and it says if you're sandik, you become very wealthy. Most people don't know, by the way. It's only if you get sandik and amid lebrachas and kvater, right? In fact,
and you pay for the suda.
And you pay half the suda, right? I did it once, right? And then I asked a certain woman for a dedication for this book. Actually, I have it here. For this book that I put out, I called her up and asked her for a dedication. Right? She said, I can't give you money now, but I'll put you in my will. Right? 1 month later, after I got sandik, she passed away and she left me $300,000 in her will. Okay. Anyway, so you see, I'm not saying any proofs, but that was right after I got all three, right? Rav Sternbach writes in his sefer, in order to get the wealth, you have to have all three and also pay for half the suda. That's why he called the Baal Bris. And by the way, this is off the record. I wrote a tshuva in one of my new sefer. A woman could do it as well, right? In the time that we showed him, the women were doing sandik. The rabbis were very upset about it. But one time a woman came to me and she wasn't religious. And she said, if I don't do sandik, I'm not doing the bris. I want to be rich. And we looked into it and we were permitted. I spoke to, I won't say who because he might get mad at me. But that's the halacha. Okay. But that as far as, so why did I mention that? Because I asked Rav Israel Orbach, you were sounding so many times, why are you rich? He said, I'm happy with what I have. That's the biggest riches you could possibly have. Who was it? Rav Shach spoke to Reichman, yeah? And he said, I envy your Olam Haba. So his wife said, that's good because he doesn't have Olam Hazeh. So the person, it doesn't matter how much money you have in the account. Like it's good to have enough money to pay for things, especially making a wedding next week. But the point is that Ezu Asher Sameach Bechelko. V'im Keina Ani Umisha Nafsher Rechava. Who's the real poor person? Nafsher Rechava, we know that was the attribute of Bilam. He just wants more and more and more. Bilam says, listen, Balak, you give me a house full of gold. It's not, I can't, and like he was saying, really what I want is a house full of gold, right? So Hamev and Yavin. She'ena mistapik b'kol hashel. He won't be happy you give him $50 billion, right? V'kol chalala da'al lo yaspiku. It's not enough. Ulchein kol yamei royim. He has a terrible life. Ki eno be'afshari shiyasig kol chefso v'yamal l'daito. He'll never be happy, this person. I feel bad for him. Kamosh kazav einan ameis v'chetzi tavas biyado. There's a famous story with the Chavetz Chaim. Yeah, famous story with the Chavetz Chaim. He had a Talmud, and this happened to me before, by the way. He had a student, and the student said, I'm going to go out, I'm going to make a lot of money, and then I'm going to give tremendous amount of money to the yeshiva. And the Chavetz Chaim said, no, you won't. Let's see what happens. Okay. It's uncharacteristic the Chavetz Chaim to talk like that. 10 years later, the student comes back and says, you know what? I made like $10 million, but I can't give tzedakah. How did you know it was going to happen? He says, because it says a person who has one wants two. So you go to some poor avrech, who has $10. Okay, he wants $20, so I'll give you a shekel, right? But you go to a guy who has $10 million, he wants $20 million. How can I give you even $180, because I'm farther away from my real amount? It's really, really hard. Someone once promised me, I did a certain tova for him. He said, if it works out, I'm going to give you $50,000. And it worked out. Baruch Hashem, I dime for him, and it worked out. But like when the money came in, he said, it's so, you have no idea. Like, I just can't write the check. And I told him the story, and like, it pacified. I was able to do it. But it's really hard. And that's what the Gemara is saying here, because the more you have, the more you want. You really have to be cognizant. Okay, that's the bad side. That's not what I want to talk about. I want to talk about the good side. V'tov leiv mishte tamid. Misha, this is what the Gemara is saying over here. Misha mistapik b'ma sheyesh lo. It doesn't matter what he has. Yeah, the story in the Gemara in the Dharam about Rebbe Kiva. Yeah, he had like a straw bed. So to make him feel better, Eliyahu Navi comes knocking on the door and says, "Does anyone here have any straw?" And he was so happy, like, and give him something, a little bit of straw. Right? So later on, he bought his wife a Yerushalayim Silzav. He got quite wealthy. But at the time, that was a big thing for him. He's happy with whatever he has. Yeah? So says the Gemara like this. What a beautiful commentary, right? Kamo ha'ish asher misameach, mishta b'beso. He has a big party going on in his house, right? Shalibo sameach, beishu shasliyayin. He's on the top of the world, like Achashverosh, after all those drinks, bring out Vashti, we won't describe like what dress she was wearing, but Lamaisa, right, he's like the king of the world. Ad sha'az afilu amelech eno shavalo. Like, I'm it, I'm everything, right? But what happens? Ach la'acher hafigo yenoi eno b'simchas oishai tchila. When the wine wears off, if he's lucky, he has a headache. If he's unlucky, like, this whole floor is dirty from his, we won't get into it. Yeah? Just ask a taxi driver after Purim. Ma she'ein kain tov leiv. But someone who has a good heart, who tamid sameach, ke'es simchas hashasei beis hamishta. The person who has a good heart, like the Gemara says here, nothing bothers him. Yeah? I had a misunderstanding with someone yesterday. Baruch Hashem, my son's getting married next Wednesday, and we're putting out a sefer for the chassan. It just came out today. Well, actually, I have it here. I can show it to you. That's like what they call nachas, right? Nachas. Anyway, so my son just came out today. The sefer. If you want to know what it's about the tefillas that you say for rain. Okay, and we worked. My son put it out. Yeah, I mean, I helped him a little bit, but. Like, I wanted an Israeli to look over because I went to my Rabbi Travis. You read like an American writing Hebrew. I said, that's probably because what it is. My Hebrew is, ani yodea ksas l'daber vita v'lo b'diuk, right? Something like that. So anyway, I gave this guy the manuscript to look over. He said, I won't get around till Sunday. Anyway, meanwhile, I on Sunday, like the guy's telling me, if you don't go to the print today, like it's not going to come out for the wedding. So I went to the guy and told him, like, I think, there's not going to be enough time. The guy was enraged because he apparently had stayed up the whole night to do it, And I didn't know that, right? He had spent the whole night, like slept 1 hour, and he was really so upset. Anyway, then they called me up from the printer. He said, it's at the printer now. I'm like, what do I do? And the guy was screaming at me. And the printer's calling. I said, you know what? Like, this guy's really upset. He's right, And I said, he found like 100 mistakes in the spelling, like with me, grammar, like, above, without above, hey, I don't know these things. I just kind of guess. So the point is like this. The point is that, okay, we canceled it and Baruch Hashem worked out fine. We got it today. But the guy was he said, I'm not taking any money from you. This is terrible what you did to me. You destroyed my, he was so upset. It was exactly everything I'm saying. And I was trying to tell him it was a misunderstanding. I thought he said Sunday, he decided to stay up. It was a complete misunderstanding. So I have a friend who's a very wise person. He said, don't talk to him now, because that'll tell us, you're not supposed to comfort a person when he's angry. Wait till the end of the day. At the end of the day, I called him over and I said, I'm so sorry. And it was so stupid of me, I should have handled this better, and I apologize and I apologize and I apologize. And they gave him more money that he had asked for, right? And then I said, I really thought like something. And he said something, he said, yeah, you're right. You told me Sunday, So just one big misunderstanding. It could have led to like 20 years later, like our grandchildren are fighting, and this, what's it called? I won't mention things like AIDS and guilt. I won't say these things because there's machlokas, Some of them are l'shem shemayim, some of them not. It's very hard to know these type of things. But the point is, the person who is tov lev, as the Gra says, he's fixed inside. He doesn't get upset at anything. He just has complete bitachon. I needed to hear like these terrible things about, myself. I'm so stupid and I'm so unorganized. Like it's all true, really. Just ask, my wife, she'll tell you. But it's not. No one's perfect. And Baruch Hashem, we have wonderful shalom bayis. That's a joke. But the point is, if your lave is in the right place, you just get upset. I told you once here, the Gemara in Sanhedrin says, when someone says that, you lose 100 of errors. And it's like, the more, like, just keep it flying. I don't have to go through Yom Kippur now. So you don't get upset, right? Rav Sternbach once, there was who just became last week, he became the Gaivet of Yerushalayim. He's now the chief of the number one in Badatz. For many years, number two. Now he's number one. So he told me once, he had a certain ruling about some apartments that were built in Ramat Beit Shemesh. Maybe they're on graves. Okay, he had a whole thing. They're not Jewish graves. It's fine, no problem. Anyway, some people think they're smarter than him, even though he's like the biggest rabbi in the world. And so they came to his house and they were throwing dirty diapers, rotten fruit, rotten vegetables. And they took 50, all the svarim. They put them through a paper shredder and they sent it FedEx. They made sure like he opened the door and got this, right? Anyway, I see him the next day, like he's smiling, like real, not like fake. I said, like, why is Rav so happy? He said, I wish they would come every day. Like, they got all my averas, like all the mitzvahs. Like, please come back. And this is okay, look, we don't want, Jews to lose their mitzvahs, get averas, but if they're going to do it anyway, I'm not going to stop them. So the point is like this. If our lave was where it should be, the base of Mikdash, there's no need to have Tisha B'Av tomorrow. I'm telling you. Somebody asked me today, like 10 people asked me today, I have to fast, this one, that one, nursing, pregnant, sick, whatever. Nobody has to fast tomorrow. I'm telling you. Okay. Why? Because all we have to do is just stop hating each other. Okay, just stop hating each other. But it's just one big bluff. And they asked me in Brooklyn from this Hakel to film a shir. I said, just right now, just take one minute in the middle of shir. I said, just call somebody up you don't get along with and just end the machlokas. Forget it. Moshe Sternbach told me a psak. He said, whoever has a fight with someone and doesn't resolve it is like, Mashiach is like trying to open the door and you're locking the door like that. That's what's going on right now. All we have to do is just drop it. And this guy interviewed for Netflix today, this one says this, and this one says this. I just say, like, be friends and, like, forget about everything. Like, when you have friendship and love with somebody, most issues just fall away. They're not important. This is what the God is telling us. What do they say? Shakespeare said, the problem is not in the stars, it's in ourselves, right? In our hearts, right? That's what the Sefer Yetzirah says. The most important, your best friend is your heart. Just take all of this garbage, clutter, tuma, whatever word you want to use of it, just get rid of it. There's no reason at all to be upset with anybody. We learned that right in the beginning too. That's Yud Aleph Yud Tes, right? It's coming from Hashem, right? It's coming from Hashem. It's a Gezerah min Hashemayim. There's no need to be upset with the person. The person will get punished, but that's not my business. His cheshbon with God. Okay, so I told this to the father of this girl who apparently she's not getting a shidduch because the family's having some feud. And he said, "Wow, that's so simple." It's hard, it's not easy to do it, but it's just like so straightforward. I promise you, if you go through Rav Gershon Edelstein's Parsha sheets for the past 10 years, every week you'll find this. He just had to say it in different words because otherwise it would look like repeating himself. This was his message to the entire generation. Look, and unfortunately Hashem took him away from us, but the message is still resonating. And at least we should do it. At least I should do it. I'm talking, right? And Baruch Hashem, I was pretty happy how I made one mistake, by the way. I tried to educate this person. I said, we Americans, we have a different shita. We believe that you should be nice to people, and then like that. You ever take charcoal lighter fluid and put it on a fire? I was like, that was like really stupid thing to say. Like one time, I was 1 minute late for the taxi. For 20 minutes, the driver was screaming at me, you don't care about us, you don't value our time, this. And at the end, I said, listen, nahag, nechbad. I said, look, if you don't scream at me, maybe next time I need a taxi, I'll call you up. I'll go to the airport. He said, are you telling me how to drive my taxi? So okay. Anyway, look, we have our American, Anglo, try to be nice to people. But it's okay. It's every place has their challenges, right? But we should know for ourselves, right? Any bad feelings we have, this is seen as chinam. As we said before here many times. The only sina that you're allowed to have is a sina for a rasha, for someone who's evil. And the Chavetz Chaim quotes in a Sefer Ahavas Chesed, and the Chazon Ish Paskin says, Halach L'maisa, he says there are no Rishonim today, really, because everybody's before Tochacha. Nobody knows to give Tochacha properly. You ever try to give someone Tochacha, right? I'm such a bad person. It just worked. You're so right. I should really be more nice to you. You're right. Like how many times that happened? You don't just know how to give it. I knew how to give Tochacha. Aaron HaKohen knew how to give Tochacha. He would meet Shimon and say, Reuben is so upset. He's crying. He wants to be a friend. And they would meet Shimon and say, Reuben's so upset. And they would meet each other. They would be such good friends. That's how you're supposed to give Tochacha. We think it says over here that you're doing something really, really wrong, Or I was in shul once, and a guy says, you daven Shemon Esrei too long. Why don't you move to a different part of the shul? Okay. So I listen to him. The next day, someone comes up to me and says, why are you davening so far away from your son? Don't you care about his chinuch? So I left the shul. But in any event, right, you have to know how to give people tochacha, right? And tochacha can really only come if you have a real love for the person. The Chavetz Chaim, it's a famous story. I heard this from Reb Pliskin. He said, one time there was somebody who was Machal Shabbos, I remember in Radin and Yeshiva, and he just took his hand and cried for 2 minutes, and the tears burning, right? And he just said, I'm not going to Machal Shabbos anymore. Anyway, Reb Pliskin was giving this class, and the guy was there. And he came, and older man, he said, yeah, that was me. It happened to me. So that's how you give tochacha, That's how you give tochacha. I'm just trying to remember, if I ever had such experience. I'm sure I did from certain gedolim, right? Yes, thank you. Okay. What, you'll leave it? No, sorry. I'm only joking. Okay, so that's the point. The point is that what we took from the Gaon here is so critical what he's saying. Yeah? The problem is in our hearts, right? And in our hearts. And it's so deep that we don't even know it's there. And not that we don't know it's there, but we call it a mitzvah. We call it a mitzvah, and it's disguised, like we said, a lot of things when we brought today. Number one, it makes it look like ourselves. That makes it really complicated. Number two, it feigns itself to be a mitzvah. That makes it really complicated. Number three, it's internal and not external. That makes it really, really complicated, right? And says the Gemara, and the shirish, the root is in bitachon, right? And when it's in bitachon, it's inside. It's really hard to change it. We really have to work, right? So really, okay, we have another till Tisha B'Av, less than 24 hours. But we can still do it. It could be if everybody here in this room just says, I'm going to try for the next 24 hours not to get upset, with anybody. If I have a dispute with somebody, right? And the hardest one is who? You know who the hardest one is?
Yourself?
What?
Yourself?
People are usually pretty gentle on themselves, right? The hardest one is your parents. Yeah. Parents, because your parents think I definitely know what's right for you. There's a certain bacher that I'm trying to help out. His father thinks he has to marry this type of girl, and the son thinks he has to marry this type of girl. And I told the father, I said, there's, when we learn math, you have this circle and that circle. What do they call in between the two things?
Venn diagram.
What?
The Venn diagram?
Oh, Venn diagram. I said, there's no Venn over here. You're this and he's this. How do you expect to get married? No, I know what's right, and this is definitely this. And he's being suggested the best shidduchim in Eretz Yisrael, children of the Gedolei Ador. But it's not like this, and it's not like this. So what's going to be? It's very hard. Parents, believe me. Okay. Hamev and Yavin. But, yeah, we have to understand that's also in a Shamayim. Everything is min Shemayim. Every challenge we have is min Shemayim. We should not get upset, not at your parents, not at my daughter once, she has triplets. They must have been about 3 or 4, and it was like really quiet in the house, and she got scared. She went in the kitchen. It was covered with flour, like white, and like you get upset, like these little kids. Okay. But the point is, we still get upset, and we're human beings, but we have to try our best. I think I said this before Pesach. I said, I'm looking for 100,000 righteous women who are going to try and not to get upset with people. The men, I said, I gave up already because, a man says, prove it to me this. I bring one going, no, maybe you could argue. I said, okay, I'm not arguing. I'll move on to the women, So these two women, right, who set up this global machzam, for 1 hour, 6 a.m. in California and 11 p.m. in Australia. If you haven't signed up, please do it right now. Global Machzom, Global, Machzom, Machsom, right, at gmail.com. Sign up 1 hour wherever you're on the globe. If we get 100,000 people together, 1 million, right? And this person who interviewed me was a Reformed Jew. I said, there's no reason Reformed Jews shouldn't sign up with this. Everybody should sign up. Everybody knows it's bad to say bad things about other people. Everyone should sign up. These type of things will bring the Jewish people together. But the most important thing is our hearts. Remember what the Malbim says it, the Maharal says it, many Mepharshim. Rav David Cohen said it, the Barbanel says it as well. If our hearts are not separated by hatred of other Jews, they'll all come together, and that's the basic Mikdash. B'shanti b'soichai, b'socham, I'm sorry, not b'socho. Chazal tell us. When the Shekhinah rests in the Jewish hearts, which are all together, not in the building. The building is just a sign that Jewish hearts are united. Once all Jewish hearts are united, then we can have a basic Mikdash. And look, we still have time. There's still time. If we do it, right, and whoever might be listening to this year, we'll see how quickly we can get it out. There's still hope. So let's hope for the best and daven. And just like, I'll tell you, the best thing is just to be quiet. Because there's such an urge. When somebody is saying like really terrible things about you, there's such an urge to fight back, because it's like, if you're quiet, then the whole world is being fixed. And like the Gula is coming. So the Yetzer Hara push is really hard. Just be quiet, listen. Some of it is probably true, right? Just ask your spouse, they'll tell you. And we could do it. We can eliminate Sinat Chinam, and we have to do it. There's no choice over here, because this is what's stopping the base of Mikdash. Just the Gra says, the Gemara says it, anybody says it. Hashem should give us the greatest siyata shmaya to be zeicher to the Gula Shleim B'Karv Mein